All right. So, part 2. We're back. My name is Kyle.
And I'm Nette.
Most people call me Preach, and she's Mama Nette a lot of times. Or Sugar Pie, Honey Bunch, Baby Love to me. Yeah. All right. So here's what we're doing. If you don't know us, and there's some people that are watching this, I'm sure, who will not know us, and that's okay. I am the pastor of Union Baptist Church in Iva, South Carolina, and
I'm the financial director at Foothills Alliance.
Now, at Union, the church that I pastor, one of the things that we do is we have a great big date night where we have a lot of couples from our church of all ages, really. We all get together every once in a while and we just go. We go out on a great big date, a kidless date, and we have fun together. We go out to eat. What did we do last time? I can't remember.
Axe throwing.
We threw axes last time.
That was fun. Somebody's a little competitive.
I won. So we threw axes last time, and it was a lot of fun. So we were planning to do another date night. It's about the time right now that we were planning on putting one together. And the problem is we have Corona. Not us. Like, we don't have Corona. We're good. But we, collectively, the world, seems to have Corona right now. The virus is out. It's this pandemic. So our plans for date night got squashed. So we decided that we were going to do something fun. Even though we couldn't go out with everybody, we would do date night on Facebook. We would have a great big quarantine edition date. It was a great idea, really great idea. And we thought it would be even more fun if we did it on Facebook Live. So date night on Facebook Live. Great idea. Didn't work. It didn't work at all because, unfortunately, our internet connection has tested positive for COVID-19 and it was sick. So we were talking a lot and everybody was commenting, I can't hear you, I can't hear you, I can't hear you. So instead of saying, okay, we'll do this another time, I just continued to talk. And I went back and watched the video, and a great portion of what I had to say, and what I say is important to me, at least, I think, sometimes. I thought it was really important what we were covering, but you couldn't hear any of it. So we decided we would just film it, and then we would load it to Facebook, YouTube, all of our different outlets tonight, what you're watching right now, and we would do it this way. So it's not as much fun as a Facebook Live, but it's kind of the best we can do. It's kind of, every once in a while, you got to drop back and punt, and that's what we do. What do we keep saying about?
When life gives you lemons, make lemonade.
We're making lemonade. So making lemonade, and we're going to go through some things tonight that we covered a little bit kind of last night, but if you watched a little bit of it last night, maybe a little different too. So whether you watched last night or not, the little bit you can hear, I think this will be very valuable to you today as well. So though we're not live, it's still going to be fun. I think it's still going to be helpful. By the way, if you are watching, it means you have clicked on a link that is taking you to a YouTube page. Do me a solid. Click subscribe. Yes, subscribe, because we're trying to raise those subscribers. And when you click subscribe, we're not going to send you emails or solicit money from you or anything else. All that you're doing is clicking a little button, and it helps us kind of move up in the feed a little bit. It makes us a little bit easier to find if we have so many subscribers. We're getting close to our goal right now, and if you've not done it yet, please do subscribe. That would be absolutely awesome. Now, all in all, again, we're in a quarantine. We're trying to make lemonades. We're trying to make lemonade out of lemon. So I want to share with you, or we want to share with you, some positive things that have come from the Corona curse, and some negative things that have come from this quarantine as well. So we'll start with a positive, because we want to be positive. First of all, positive for you. What's a positive thing that has come from this quarantine?
No judgment. But I get to work in my PJs.
She gets to work in her pajamas, and this is like a dream come true for Nette. I cannot go out of my door in pajamas because of ethical, moral reasons. And I was just raised you don't go outside in your pajamas. My grandmothers, both of them, you wouldn't dare. You're moving the thing, you're shaking the thing. Look, we didn't have an earthquake. She's moving the table. So I can't go out in my pajamas, but Annette is like thriving in this pajama stuff. She loves the pajamas. You don't have pajamas on today because she had to go to the office for a minute today, so she put on clothes. So Praise the Lord. One of the positive things that I'm finding from the corona curse virus quarantine that we're in right now is that we have children at home. They're not home very much most of the time, but because of the quarantine, they've been home a lot. And child labor laws do not apply. So we are working them. We are working them like dogs. So that's been very effective. Matter of fact, right now, I got a son out washing cars right now. So we're working them hard. No labor laws, right? Yeah. What's another thing that you see is kind of a positive thing about the corona?
I'm really enjoying being out in the sun. I can go outside and take my laptop and do some work outside and soak up a little bit of...
In her pajamas. Go outside in her pajamas.
I at least put on shorts.
She does put on shorts for that. So, all right. So that's good too. And for me, it's this quarantine has given me a little more time. It really forced me to spend a little more time connecting with a bigger audience through social media. I enjoy social media, and everybody's got different opinions on it. I like it though, and this has given me more time to really focus on really connecting with a broader group of people. So there are some positives. What are some positives for you? You can write them in the comments after this is over with, some things that you've enjoyed. How about some negative things? For me, one of the negative aspects of the coronavirus quarantine so far has been I am a extrovert to the nth degree. I've not always been this way. I've actually was the opposite, and Nette was the extrovert and I was the introvert, but for whatever reason we've switched this totally, and I'm an extrovert, so I have to be around people. I have to be connecting with people face to face, have to be talking. I have to have this. And I don't have it right now except for virtually, which is not the same. It's best we've got though. So for me, that's been a very negative thing. How about you? Negative corona curse quarantine?
Mine's going to come back to the kids and being at home. The house is a mess. Everybody's home. 3 kids, 3 dogs, husband, wife. It's always a mess.
I don't make a mess. Everybody else might, but I don't make a mess. So how about y'all? Y'all get, especially moms at home, you would probably agree to that. It's gotten messier. And the laundry, you caught up?
Almost, yes.
Almost caught up with laundry.
Until they bring it to the laundry room again, and then I'll go at it all over.
Yeah. So there's also that as well. And one that we've talked about that we both see as a negative, we don't know what day it is. We
losing track of time.
I was at the grocery store the other day, and the young lady checking me out. It was on a Sunday, or on a Monday, or on a Sunday. It was on a Sunday. I went by the grocery store to pick some things up, and how are you doing? Talking with her, small talk, and she said, "This has been the longest Monday ever." I said, "It has been the longest Monday ever." And I got out of the car and realized it's not Monday at all. So we've lost track of time terribly. So that's a negative thing. But one really positive thing with what we're dealing with right now is we're getting to talk with you right now. So we're getting to kind of hang out online and talk about one of our favorite things to talk about, and that is marriage. It's marriage. Now, before I go any further on what we're going to be dealing with just for a few moments tonight, this video won't be that long, so just hang out there with us. It's really important what we're going to talk through. Not any brand new stuff, not any world-changing, revolutionary thoughts, just basic thoughts about some things that are very important. Before we go any further, though, I want us to talk about for a moment, when we talk about marriage tonight, we're talking about biblical marriage. We're talking about that God-honoring biblical marriage. This quarantine that we're in right now could be used to build our marriages, or it could be used to bust our marriages. In Hebrews chapter 13, verse 4, the author of Hebrews writes, he says that marriage should be respected by everyone. Marriage should be respected, revered, should be honored by everyone. And sadly and unfortunately, that's not what we're seeing in our culture right now. Right now, we're seeing marriage be dismissed as something that's archaic, something that's irrelevant. We don't need it anymore. It's something from times gone by, and it's just, there's no purpose in it anymore. We've also seen marriage being demeaned in our culture today, and that's basically marriage is a career buster. It gets in the way of my plans and my life. I ain't got time for no man. I ain't got time to be married. I don't have time for a woman. That's unfortunate. It really is. And marriage is also being redefined right now. Many are redefining it. it's kind of the trendy thing to do to decide what marriage is for ourselves, but we don't have that authority because we didn't create marriage. We don't get to define what it actually is. And a lot of people struggle right now with marriage because they have an unrealistic view of what marriage is. I call it the Disney syndrome. I think
no Prince and Prince Charming.
No Prince and Prince Charming. The Disney syndrome, for me at least, is one of the most. And I'm a pastor. I do a lot of counseling, a lot of marriage counseling. This is one that I run into all the time. And I don't have people coming into my office saying, I thought I married Prince Charming. It's not that, but
it's not a fairy tale.
It's not a fairy tale. And the idea is kind of this Disney dream that Prince Charming is always going to be Prince Charming. And happily ever after, and the princess is never going to get a wrinkle or get older, that she's going to look like she did when you got married the entire time, and you're going to live happily ever after, and it's beautiful. And the problem with that is we put those tags on each other as being this princess, this perfect princess, this Prince Charming that went from a frog to the prince real quick, and it's an unrealistic view because we are all imperfect. We all sin, Romans 3:23, and we all fall short of the glory of God. I said in last night's video, if you could hear it, I don't know if you could hear it or not, that when we get married, it is a union of two imperfect people. Two imperfect people don't make one perfect person. It's not the way it works at all. We bring our baggage, we bring our issues, we bring our warts and our wrinkles into marriage. It is just going to happen. So marriage, when we're talking about today, understand I'm talking about created by God, designed by God, instituted by God, and blessed by God. He created us for connection, and there is nothing that creates us or connects us more than marriage. In Mark chapter 10, our Lord Jesus says that man would leave his father and his mother to be married and would cleave unto his wife, and the two of them would become one flesh. So God gives us purpose for marriage. We talked about a little last night. In case you didn't hear us, I'm not going to talk all the way through it, but God purposed marriage for things like multiplication. First command that God gave mankind is my favorite. I love it, and here it is. Don't look all spiritual at me when I say this, because this is a gift. God says man would leave his father and mother, cleave unto his wife, and then the first command that he gives them, be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. So God's purpose, one of the purposes for marriage, biblical marriage, God-honoring marriage, is to multiply and fill the earth. Wonderful. All right. The second thing, another purpose that God has given marriage is for the growth of our character. We were born self-centered. We're all born self-centered. How is a child, a baby, self-centered? What are ways that a baby is self-centered?
Feed me.
Feed me.
Bathe me.
Bathe me. Clean me. I pooped. Fix me. It's me. We're born that way. We're born that way. We're born that way. Maturity, though. Maturity is understanding that life is not about me. Life's not about me. Marriage reminds us of that. When you're joined together with your wife, with her husband, the two have become one flesh, and we're reminded that it's not about me anymore. It grows us in our character. We learn through marriage how to be more grace-filled towards one another, understanding that neither one of us is perfect. We learn how to be more patient with each other. It's something she's working on. But no, she does great at that. We learn forgiveness. I said last night, I said a billion times, great marriages are the union of two great forgivers. It's two great forgivers. That's the only way marriages really work as they're supposed to. So marriage's purpose is also the growth of our character. It also, and most importantly, the purpose of marriage as God designed it is to reflect our union with Christ. You can read it in your own time, but in Ephesians chapter 9, we find God is calling men to love their wives like Christ loved the church, for wives to honor their husbands. Marriage serves as an example of the love that Jesus has for his bride, the church. The groom is Jesus, the bride is the church. So it's an example, a reflection of the love that Jesus has for his church. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about married. And I want you to know that marriage can be great. Now, there can be some trying times in marriage. There can be some things that test it. This quarantine could be one of those trying times for you. We're seeing more of each other than we've seen in a long time. And I'm speaking in general, because that has not so much been the case for us. Because I am the worst quarantiner ever. I have been gone more than I've been at home. So I'm just kind of speaking in general terms, but we have spent a lot of time together in ways that we weren't before. And I would say even more intentional about that than we were before, which is a good thing. So you may be watching this video and you have spent a little more time than you're used to spending with one another. You may be getting on each other's nerves by now. There's some things like coming up that you hadn't thought about in a long time, and he's grating on you and she's grating on you, and things like him chewing loud is now getting on your nerves. So there, I said that because that's something that happens in our house. She doesn't like the way I eat apples. It bothers her. She moves out. You can't eat apples quietly. Maybe you need to do a counseling video for us. Maybe that.
How to eat apples.
So help her understand how apples make noise when you eat them. All right, so, but here's the thing. Here's what the Bible says in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 16, about the time that we have. Redeem the time. That means to make most of the time. So what we have an opportunity to do right now, we have time. I believe God's given us time. He's blessed us with this time to really invest ourselves in our marriage, really work on our marriage. So I want to give you 3 tips, or we're going to give you 3 tips. I'll do most of the talking because that's what I do. I talk a lot. I'm going to give you 3 tips that will help you to keep your relationship fresh during a quarantine. All right, they're very simple. The first one is this. If you're writing things down, write down. This is an opportunity for us that God has given us to work on our communication. To work on our communication. Have you noticed that people don't talk anymore? Now, they text, yes, but they don't talk. And those 2 things are not the same thing. People don't talk anymore. One of the reasons, I think, is because there are too many distractions out there. A lot of people are distracted. All right, so there's a pet peeve.
Called a phone. It's distracting in life in general, all the time. I love you though.
All right, I am an admitted workaholic, and I do use social media a lot for work purposes. And I also just thumb through Twitter a lot too, because I enjoy reading things on Twitter and articles and blogs, and I read a lot, and I'm always researching, so I am on my phone a lot. But I am better, wouldn't you say?
Making effort. Yes.
I'm making an effort to be better about this. But one of the reasons that we don't talk, maybe it's your phone, maybe it's the television, maybe it's just zeroed in on this or that, but we don't talk much because we're too distracted to talk right now. And there's 1,000 different things we can be doing other than talking. And talking, sometimes communication is hard, and we're generally lazy, and we like to do the easiest thing. So we don't talk because we're distracted. Also because we don't communicate well because we're not allowing ourselves to be vulnerable or open. A lot of times we don't do that, even in the context of a marriage. That closest relationship that you can have on planet Earth outside of a relationship with Jesus should be the most honest and vulnerable relationship you have. But again, I've been doing this for a long time, and that's the problem that a lot of people have. They're not very open. They're not very vulnerable, even in the context of marriage. So we don't communicate very well. But here's the problem. Communication is the key. It is the key to having a great marriage. Outside of Jesus first, if you can't communicate, you're not going to have the marriage that you can have. You're not going to have it. There's no black and white. There's no gray area. That's black and white. You either communicate well and you can have a great, or you don't communicate well. No matter what you do, it's not going to be good. So how can we be during this time? How can we become better communicators? The first thing we could do is we could work on becoming a better listener. That's something that I'm not great at. Again, I talk a lot. Were you about to say
really
something?
bad.
She's bad too. So we're not too good, but this is a time where we can use to really work on that. You can become, though, a better listener. It really is a learned behavior. It really is. Listen to Proverbs chapter 18, verse 2. A fool, that's pretty strong language. A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion. You know anybody like that? Don't look at your husband. Don't look at your wife. Do you know anybody like that? A fool, Solomon, wisest man who ever lived, according to Jesus, says that a fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but he only takes pleasure in expressing his opinion, or getting his word out.
Can't tell him nothing.
Can't tell him nothing. Nothing. Right? Listening really hearing. Also, it can't take place if while Annette is talking to me, I'm formulating my response back to her. That's something that, especially you fixers, I don't know. I'm a fixer. It's one of the things that I do. I think I've got to fix everything and everybody. So I'm always, the wheels are always churning. Even when they're talking to me, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to say in response rather than really listening to them. Another problem with that, Proverbs 18:13, if anyone gives an answer before he truly hears, it's to his shame and it's to his folly. So you can use this time to become a better listener. Just kind of soak it all in. Make a point. Be intentional on not trying to formulate a response, but actually hear what your spouse is saying to you. You agree with that?
I agree.
Pretty smart. That's pretty smart. All right. Proverbs, pretty good book. All right. Secondly, not only can I work on communication by becoming a better listener, I can work on my communication by mastering my mouth, by taming the tongue. Would you agree with me that compliments can accomplish far more than criticism can?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Again, marriage counseling 101. I do a lot of this. Compliments accomplish so much more than criticism can ever hope
You're so smart,
to do.
baby.
I'm so smart. All right, see, that's a compliment. That builds me up. I just feel wonderful now. All right? So Proverbs 25:11 says this, a word that's fitly spoken is like a golden apple. Read Ephesians 4:29.
Let no corrupt talk come from your mouth, but only what is which for building up.
Let no corrupt talk. Our communication with one another should never be corrupt. The way that we speak with one another, and this is how we communicate well and fruitfully, it's not corrupt, but it's only that which builds up. You don't build your spouse up through constant criticism. It does not happen. The opposite takes place. If you tell somebody they're not for long enough, they're eventually going to believe it. They're eventually going to believe it. So talk your spouse up. And we're not talking about flattery necessarily. That's not necessarily a good thing either. We're talking about being productive and being a blessing in my speech to my spouse. It'll bless your communication. Ultimately, James chapter 1 verse 9 is a great communication guide for us. Be quick to hear, be slow to speak, and be slow to anger. So here's the challenge that I want to give you on working on your communication during this quarantine. Redeem the time to work on communication by setting aside time to talk to one another, to really talk to one another. With no distractions, phone aside, TV, not paying attention to that, to actually have a discussion with one another. That's something that we've been doing throughout this quarantine time.
We've been going to the park and walking around the park for 45 minutes to an hour every day, and that's our time to communicate and talk and talk about our day.
We've been going to the park, and right now where we are in South Carolina, we're not locked down in our houses yet, so we can still go to the park and walk. So that's what we've been doing. We've just been walking or sitting on the porch outside at night and just talking, and it's just been really, really nice to do that. We even went. She ran with me the other day.
I survived.
She ran. We didn't talk while we were running because she was purple.
Too good to breathe.
Yeah. But I want to challenge you to do that. Challenge you to set aside time to talk every single day. Just a few minutes. Just talk. And try not to talk about your children or your work. It's really hard. But try not to talk about that. Talk about you. Talk about things that are going on in your life. Just try to really talk. So, number one, we could really work on our communication during this quarantine. Secondly, I want to encourage you to go all out in caring during the quarantine. Go all out in caring. It's so funny that when we were dating, we would put work into that relationship that we don't anymore when we're married. So when we were dating, I would do things. What are some of the cool things that I would probably do?
Brought me flowers every day for like the first month.
Yes. Young men, pay attention. It worked.
Yes.
She married me.
Open the door.
I still open the door for you. Yeah. But we put a lot of spit game.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Have game. So you go all out when you're dating somebody. And then you get married and you got to kick your feet up. It's like, well, I got her now, or she's got me now. There's really no reason to put all this effort into it. But again, one of God's purposes for marriage is to build our character. Selfishness is a marriage killer. It absolutely destroys it. When I'm focused on my own needs, it's going to destroy my marriage. The quarantine that God has given us, I believe everything's a blessing. Everything has a blessing attached to it. This quarantine, you'll find hundreds of opportunities to show your spouse, to demonstrate to your spouse how much you truly care for them. In Philippians chapter 2, verse 4, the Bible says, do not merely look out for your own interest, but look out for the interest of others. Romans chapter 12, verse 10 says that we're to defer to one another. In other words, we're to put everybody else's needs, including specifically really our spouses, before we put our own. So understanding that, if I'm going to care well during this quarantine, I've got to understand that Annette's needs are greater than mine to me. In the same way, she looks at my needs my needs in being greater than hers. And when that takes place, guess what happens? Both of those needs are ultimately met. They're ultimately met. So here's our challenge for our care, working on our care for one another during this quarantine. Do 3 things every day that they demonstrate that care.
Does making the bed count?
Making the bed counts. So she's got 1 already. She owes me 2 more. She made the bed this morning, so she owes me 2 more. Now, but there's certain things like right now she's doing this video with me. I can't tell you how not happy or excited she is about doing this, because she doesn't like to be on camera
at all.
She takes pictures. She likes to have other people on camera, but she don't like to be on camera. So she's doing this for me. This is something that matters to me. It means something to me. She's demonstrating care to me, and I've demonstrated care to you. Too, throughout this quarantine. I've tried to be very intentional on like doing nice things.
Cooks for me? That says so much.
I do cook.
Yes.
I do cook. I enjoy cooking. So work on that. 3 things every single day. Don't have to be big things. You don't have to roll out the red carpet. Small things make big differences. Just focus on doing 3 things every day throughout the duration of this quarantine, and prayerfully on after it's over with, that demonstrate care for your spouse. And lastly, one of the things that we could really work on during this quarantine is to commune. Now, what I mean by commune is really dwell together. This is an opportunity for you to really reconnect with your spouse. We're kind of forced to, in a lot of ways, to reconnect with one another. Again, there's 2 ways to look at this thing. This quarantine is either a burden for your relationship or it's a blessing for your relationship. But here's what I want you to know. God not only created marriage, He created you. He created me, and He created you, and He created your spouse. And not only did He create all of us, He saw fit to put y'all together. He saw fit to put y'all together. I don't believe in coincidence or happenstance. I believe God is absolutely sovereign. And one of the reasons I believe He's sovereign is our own story. She was just a small town girl living in a lonely world. We called the midnight. So, yeah, she wasn't really small. I was a small town boy, though. Our world should not have connected by happenstance or coincidence, but we did connect. We met each other. Very shortly thereafter, we were engaged. I don't believe in beating around the bush. So we kind of figured things out early, so we went ahead and got engaged, and then we were married. 9 months after that? 6. Yep, and that's 6 months after that in that neighborhood. So we didn't go the route that you should go. We didn't go the route that God has prescribed, but even through our foolishness, God was glorified, and He's blessed it because though we didn't start things out in the way that God would have us to start them out, we gave it to Him. And God has blessed our time together. He's blessed our relationship. He's blessed our marriage. So the reality is, God is not surprised by COVID-19. He is not taken off guard by a quarantine that we're in right now. He's given it to us as an opportunity for us to really redeem the time that we have together, and bless us with that time so that we can reconnect with one another, and we can work on that community that we share with each other. Now, I want to wrap up by saying this, and this is extraordinarily important. I'm going to draw a picture for you, actually. In Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 12, again, Solomon, and he writes this: a cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. Not only should we be focusing really on the communion that we have with one another, but the communion that she and I both have with God. In all of my marriage counseling, I actually do this in my pre-marriage counseling. I draw a little diagram. I don't know if you can see it. It's just a little triangle. And this is how marriages are blessed. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 33, the Bible says, "Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and then all these things will be added unto you." It's true in marriage too. Here's how your marriage can be blessed during the quarantine. I don't know if you can see it, but at the top of the triangle is God. Here are husband and wife. The only way that we can draw closer to one another is to draw closer to God. Listen, that's it. That's all. If we're not drawing closer here on an individual basis, we're not going to draw closer to one another. So take this time not only to commune with one another and work your relationship with one another, but also take this time to work on your relationship with our Lord, and he'll draw you closer together through it. All right, so before we wrap up, do want to say thank you, first of all, for quarantining with me. She's such a great quarantine partner. We've enjoyed our quarantine. So I want to say thank you there. Also, if you haven't yet, please do mash subscribe on the little YouTube button. That'll help us so much. And also, tomorrow, which will be Sunday, depending on when you watch this, Sunday the 5th, I will be posting my sermon at 10:30 a.m. You can find it at unionbaptistiva.com. It'll be posted there. It'll be on Facebook. But on this same YouTube channel, if you subscribe, you can see it there. I'm going to be dealing with Ephesians chapter 1, and we're going to be looking at the power that we need to have a marriage that thrives, to live a life that is abundant, the power that we need to follow Christ and to live under his lordship. So many times we say, I can't do it, I'm so weak, and there's power within that God has placed within us, every believer, that enables us to fulfill the calling that God's placed upon our lives. So that's going to be tomorrow morning, Sunday morning, April 5th at 10:30. If you don't make it then, it'll be on. You can just look at it anytime. All right, so appreciate you being here with us, Annette, and doing this video with us. She's not as happy as she looks right now, but I'm happy. So that's ultimately what matters. Really not
that's
at
how
all.
It works on our marriage.
That's yeah.
Just kidding.
Not really. All right. So anyway, thank you for joining us. I'm sorry we weren't live, but I hope you had fun, learned a little bit. Click like, click share to help us get this word out, and subscribe to YouTube. God bless.